Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Rush Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our video. The Birmingham Bowl on December 23rd, which is the last day of bowl games before Christmas. And both of these teams, they had a really solid year, especially Duke at first before their season did start to trail in the wrong direction before the end of the year with Riley Leonard's injury. But still overall, for the Duke Blue Devils standards, they had a good year. Troy had a great season just like they had last year, but both teams, they have some things that they're going to have to navigate if they're going to be able to try to win this game, because the Duke Blue Devils, they've lost their head football coach Mike Elko to Texas A&M. Manny Diaz going to be their new head coach, but he can't coach in this game. So associate head coach Trooper Taylor, he will be the interim head coach for Duke in this matchup. And obviously with Mike Elko leaving, there's a lot of guys in the portal for Duke, including Riley Leonard, Anais Peebles, one of their best defensive players, and Jordan Waters, their top running back. So Grayson Loftis will be the starting quarterback for Duke in this game, the backup quarterback. He is not a very experienced player, but he does show some potential. But it will be interesting to see how he can play against a Troy team that is very disciplined and one of the better group of 5 teams in college football. Jaquez Moore as well. He'll have to fill in for Jordan Waters as the top running back for the Duke Blue Devils in this bowl game. But it's not all roses for Troy either, because John Sumrall, their head football coach, he's gone to Tulane. So that's a tough loss for them. Defensive coordinator Greg Gasparalo, he's going to have to be the interim head coach in this game. But luckily for Troy, as of now, which things can change between now and the day of the bowl game, but Troy only has Jaden McDonald. One of their best defensive players is in the portal. Other than that, everybody else is going to be playing in this game so far for Troy. So that definitely will help out their chances, because they have less opt-outs than the Duke Blue Devils, and Troy has a lot of solid players. And Troy also has won their last 5 bowl games, and it's the Birmingham Bowl. So this bowl game is in the state of Alabama. So that's why Troy is favored by 8 points. As you can see right there, the odds makers are on the side of the Trojans, because they technically have that home field advantage of having the bowl game in Alabama, and they've got all their players presumably playing. Because Gunnar Watson, their starting quarterback, he had a great year. 3,339 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. And Grayson Loftis, he wasn't even able to crack Riley Leonard's 1,000-yard passing, which Riley Leonard did not play the whole season. So you can definitely tell Duke's passing attack is nowhere near as good as Troy's. Yes, Troy's in the Sun Belt, but that is a solid conference. If you look at Kamani Vidal, the star running back for Troy, he had 1,582 yards and 14 rushing touchdowns. That's fantastic. And their top wide receiver at 892 yards and 5 touchdowns. And you can see that Duke's starting running back Waters, who's not playing, he only had 753 yards. Jaquez Moore at around 600. And then you also look at the wide receiver in with Jordan Moore. He had 794 yards and 8 touchdowns. So all around, Duke's offense not as good as Troy's. Their defense is better, but a lot of their defensive players are not playing in this game. They're in the portal. So Duke has a lot of things they're going to have to overcome. They are favored in the FBI predictor, but that's because Duke's a Power 4 conference team and Troy's from the Sun Belt. But the odds makers tell the real story, having Troy favored by 8 points, because as long as Gunnar Watson and Kamani Vidal do not opt out by entering the transfer portal, Troy has a great shot to win. Now, looking at Troy's season, they had a great year. They lost to Kansas State and James Madison, but outside of that, they beat every other opponent on their schedule, and they were able to win the Sun Belt Championship game in big fashion by knocking off Appalachian State, who won their bowl game as well. So App State won their bowl game, so that definitely shows you how good of a team Troy was this season. Looking at Duke, though, they had a great start to the year, knocking off Clemson when they were ranked in the top 10. They beat Northwestern, lost to Notre Dame in agonizingly close fashion. That's when Riley Leonard got injured, though. They were able to knock off NC State, but then you saw that the losses were starting to mount. They beat Wake Forest. They were able to knock off Pitt at the end of the season, but Duke really struggled down the stretch of the season without Riley Leonard. Mike Elko obviously was probably looking for another job, getting the A&M job, so Duke kind of fell apart toward the end of the season. So we don't know how good Duke's even going to look in this game, because they have a lot of guys in the portal. Now they have an interim head coach, and even though Troy has an interim head coach as well, losing John Sumrall to Tulane kind of makes me believe this game could be fairly close, because Troy is still a group of 5 team. They're not a power conference team. Duke has that advantage. But Troy being in Birmingham, Alabama, and as long as their players don't opt out, they've got a lot of advantages in this game. Me and WillND, we break down whether we believe that Duke can defy the odds without their head coach and a lot of their players. Can they knock off Troy and get a big win for the ACC and Bowl Mania? Or do we believe that because Troy has a lot of advantages, and even though they don't have their head coach, will they be able to knock off an ACC team in the Duke Blue Devils and get their 12th win of the season to cap off their 2023 season? I'll go with Troy to beat Duke 28-17. If Duke had all their starters and Elko, I would have picked Duke, and I can't go with Duke with the way they look right now.
Yeah, I can't go with them either. I'll go 34-10 Troy.
Wow, man, going with a blowout. It'd be reminiscent to Oregon State over Florida. Yeah. And it could happen. I mean, it is what it is, but it stinks for a program like Duke that they don't make bowl games that often. I mean, they do, especially because they're in the ACC, which not like the Big Ten, where it's hard for like a program like Rutgers make a bowl. They make bowls every now and then, but they're still not a program that consistently gets there. And they're usually would be one of the ones that everybody's available. But with no Elko and Leonard wanting to get a better spot and a better team like Notre Dame, it makes sense. But that's very tough for Duke and the fans, probably knowing that their chances of winning this game are very nil. When if they were at full strength, they probably would have a great chance to win. Very tough. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think that Troy will be able to knock off the Duke Blue Devils in the Birmingham Bowl, or whether you believe that the Blue Devils can knock off the Trojans even without all their players and their head coach, and what you think about me and WillND's pick for the Birmingham Bowl. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I'll see you next time.